Hi, and welcome to my top 10 books of 2021. I read a total of 80 books this year, which might seem high to some people and low to some people, but I'm an English major, so it's sort of in my job description. Anyways, these are in a particular order, so we will be counting down from 10 and going to 1. This is the first video I ever made on my YouTube back in 2020, and so it's been a full year since I have made one of these and made a YouTube video, and I think that's really cool. It's a milestone for me. So here we go. For number 10, we have a book named Beloved. There are so many theories and so many ways you could get into talking about this book, and I would say it's a pretty confusing read, but I think it's well worth it, and it's well worth it to get into a discussion about the book and all the different theories you can have for what's going on, what the message of the book is, and if the book is real, if it's a dream, if it's a ghost. There's so many theories and questions, and I had to read this for an African American literature class, but it was so amazing I had to put it on this list. So if you have an interest to read a mystery, African American literature, Toni Morrison is a classic author. I encourage you to check this one out, and that is why it's number 10. Number 9 is the famous Shakespeare play Titus Andronicus. First of all, I wanted to show you the cover and the back of this version because they are absolutely stunning. If I was the type to get tattoos, I would definitely get tattoos of these. This book / play is riveting. It's probably Shakespeare's bloodiest play, so if you're into that type of play, I would definitely encourage a read. Of course, Shakespeare is hard to read, but I definitely think it's worth the trouble. I think it's definitely posing some interesting questions about familial ties and race, and there are so many things you can get into with this book that I think people don't assume you can do just because it's a Shakespeare play. But he's a classic for a reason, so I would definitely encourage a read of this. Also, just look at that cover again. Stunning. That's why it's 9. Number 8 is Yugioh Volume 1, a manga I did not think I would enjoy as much as I did. It's definitely not as similar to the TV show as you think it's going to be. He still has powers, he still has the magic pyramid from his grandpa, and he still has the same friends, but they're kind of different. Everything in it is a little bit different. It's definitely a setup to the actual Yu-Gi-Oh game, but first, it just starts with different games. I know Squid Game was a big thing this year, and Yu-Gi-Oh definitely has a similar vibe where he forces people to play games in order to punish them for being bad people to his friends, which I think is really cool. Also, the art style is just super interesting. I feel like I never see anime or manga styled like this anymore, and it was just really refreshing to read something so old, but you can tell people really are going to love it, and from historical evidence that people love this. It's just so much fun, so I am excited to keep collecting them, but they're really hard to find. Seems like not as many people know about this, so if you want to give it a read, give it a read. That's why it's number 8. Number 7 is the manga The Girl from the Other Side. This manga, first of all, is beautiful. Every single picture looks like it took a billion years to make, but that's coming from someone who cannot draw at all. It's the story of a little girl who is found by this, what I'm assuming is demon. Obviously, I've only read volume 1, so I'm not 100% sure on any of the lore aspects yet, but I do know it's a wonderful story about how he is trying to parent her and keep her safe in a world that definitely seems not too fond of humans anymore. It's an interesting story. It's absolutely adorable, and the art really keeps you going. There's a bit of an interesting take / twist in it. I wouldn't really call it a twist, but there are some surprising things that happen, so I won't try and spoil anything, but you should definitely give this a read. Number 6 is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. This is certainly an interesting story, as all the other books have been, but in ways that sometimes might turn other readers off, but I really encourage you to give it a try. It's from the perspective of an old woman who is tired of people hunting in the forest and upsetting the laws of nature, and the ways she interacts with the village and the community while also reliving her past is just really interesting and makes for a very compelling story. It's obviously a little bit hard to keep up with, but I promise if you stick through it, it's so well done, and it has such an interesting ending. I really don't want to spoil it, but oh my goodness, I did not see it coming. So if you have any interest at all in old people, in the forest, in nature, in murder mysteries, I encourage you to read this one. It's one you don't want to miss out on. Number 5 is The Goddess of Yesterday, a tale about a girl who doesn't seem to be prominent in Greek mythology. Maybe she is prominent, maybe she's not real at all in Greek mythology. As far as I know, I've only read the Percy Jackson series, so don't come after me. But it's an interesting tale of her perspective of the different gods and goddesses and people from Rome and all those different places, and how she interacts with them as well as their gods while trying to worship her own gods that none of us have heard of and none of the other people have heard of in the story as well. I think it's an interesting take on religions and how they change and shape the people around us as well as ourselves. And it's an absolutely beautiful read. The environments that Carolyn B. Cooney describes are magnificent and wonderful, and the urgency and the feelings that you get following along the main character are very real and very felt. It made me not want to read it, but also I couldn't put it down because I had to make sure that the main character came out of this okay. So I really encourage you to give it a read. It's such a fun time. Number 4 is Yolo LeRoy, a story about a group of people who all seem to know each other during the Civil War and after the Civil War. More specifically, these people are either enslaved or are of African/Black descent. I think it's a really interesting tale. I think it's super involving. I just felt for all of these characters. They are so well written and so real. And also the descriptions of the environment and everything that is happening makes you feel like you're really there. It's also very uplifting, which might seem unusual for people who read about the Civil War, but this story does have a happy ending and it wonderfully ties everything together. And while I think not every story has to have a happy ending, I think this one definitely did. These characters definitely deserve it, and it's so much fun to see them all reunite and be able to enjoy each other's company, and I encourage you to enjoy their company as well. Number 3 is Volume 1 of the Black edition of Death Note. Obviously, I've seen the anime before, so none of this was a surprise to me, but I think it's absolutely an interesting read, and the art is phenomenal. I could not get over how well done all of these pictures look. I mean, normally for smaller panels, you can take a break and sort of do a little bit less, but it seems like the writer went full out for every single panel of this manga, and I really appreciate that. If you've never seen this story, I definitely encourage watching the anime or buying the manga. It seems to be all the rage currently, so you've probably heard of it, but I just think it's so interesting, and I am so curious to see what people would do if given a power like that. And I don't know what it is about it. I seem to be rambling for this one, but it's just so much fun. I wish the Death Note the musical had actually become a thing, because I would have watched that over and over and over. I really encourage you to read it. It's definitely actually a little bit more allegorical than we think it is. It's got a lot of Christianity parallels that I think are really topical and would be a really great discussion that I haven't been able to discuss before. So if you've read Death Note and want to talk about it, please comment down below. I'd so love to discuss theories. Also, if you're scared of the Shinigami, don't worry. I was too. Number 2 is How to Do Nothing, a book that is not as simple as it sounds. While it does pretty much answer the question how to do nothing, it's a lot more convoluted to do nothing in this world than you think it is. I think it's a wonderful lesson on how the economy and capitalism and, life take over and you feel like you have to be plugged in and connected and talking and involved in everything. There is so much FOMO in the world, and it drives me crazy sometimes when I can't do everything I want to do. So reading this book was definitely an eye-opener for me, and it taught me some things about myself and things that I can do to sort of unplug. I'll never be fully unplugged. I obviously have a YouTube channel, but I think it's good for everyone to at least know when they should take a step back. So to avoid burnout and even more problems than we already have. Number 1 is Anxious People, a book that I didn't realize changed my life until I was having to make this video, and I thought to myself, what is my number 1 book? And I think it's this. It's just a collection of characters, all from different walks of life, and how they handle their lives and the hard things that are thrown their way. There's this one character who runs while listening to heavy metal, and I just related to her so much. I have no words to describe how this book makes me feel, how it creates a sense of community and a sense of togetherness, even when you barely know each other. Strangers have a connectedness that no one else seems to understand, and it just made me happy to feel like I belonged. And I'm not even a character in the book. If you like a story about community, if you like pizza, if you like housing markets, and if you like stick-ups, then maybe you'll like this book. Please give it a read. So that's it. Whether you agree or disagree with my top 10, I would love to hear what books you enjoyed to read this year, and I would love any recommendations for future reads. I'm always looking for more books. I hope you enjoyed, and I know I enjoyed, so I guess that's it. Bye.